We record these weeks early, and it's not October yet. This will be coming out in October, but I am drinking a pumpkin beer, which is pretty fantastic, in order to get into the Halloween spirit. Today we're doing a spooky episode. Welcome to Overthinking Games. My podcast is named that.
A podcast about what video games can teach us.
There we go. That's
Katie,
the line.
And we're joined today by Nick from Smashing Game Time. Thank you so much for being here, Nick.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Dempsey. Thank you for having me, you guys. We had Katie on Smashing Game Time a few weeks back, and you were a joy to have. And I think we're actually going to replace Jake with you. So if you, this is actually your last episode here, right?
Oh, well, good to know. Absolutely.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, sadly,
we're glad you're here.
Seth has died, and so we are. He will be back in ghost form hopefully next week. But Seth sends his regards. He is feeling sickly with a cold today, so that's why Seth's not here. We wish him well.
My cold open was going to be a brilliant joke about cold opens, and then he got a cold, but Dempsey thought it was stupid, so it's fine.
I thought it was good. I just thought we had to do the cold open enough times that we should switch it up.
In fairness, yeah. So this week we are going to be talking about horror games, and basically sort of the genre of horror and how it relates differently maybe to games than to film. But first, we're going to talk about what we've been playing this week. Dempsey, do you want to kick us off?
Okay, so I need to broaden my horizons because I have only been playing Baldur's Gate 3.
I knew you were going to say that.
It's so good. I'm in Act 2. I'm doing like 4 playthroughs, each with different friends. And they're all completely different characters. What Seth gets out of like different mechanical runs in Elden Ring, I am really feeling that for Baldur's Gate, because like one of my characters is like a very passive cleric. One of my characters is this like like every different character has so much. It's such a different experience. That game is so incredible. And I still can't have nothing intelligible to say about it. Like I still cannot
have nothing.
I whatever. You know what? Whatever. You know what I meant. The whole point of English is to convey meaning. And so if you knew what I meant, then definitionally it was correct. The only other game I played is a really like a game that I am enamored with called A Night in the Woods. Have either of you guys played A Night in the Woods?
I've heard of it though. I've heard it's cozy.
Same.
I am about 2 hours in. It is such good writing. Like it is so fantastically written. I am so it's about so I'm only 2 hours in. I think it's like a 10-hour game. So far, nothing supernatural or anything has happened. It's about this 20-year-old woman who drops out of college and has to come home because she realizes her life is falling apart and she has no control over the direction of her life. And then seeing like feeling like because you're enjoying the same things you enjoyed as a teen, worrying that you have not grown as a person, because anyways, it's just, she's worried that she's not growing as a person because she's enjoying all the same things she did in high school. And that's where like the horror elements come in. Like which like so far, I don't know, like all of the promotional material is like spooky woods and like fall vibes. And it is a very fall game. And like we have gone to the woods once, but so far it's written like an indie drama, just about people being terrified that their lives are meaningless. I think,
Stagnation.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. So it's a really interesting contrast to the game I played last time, which was Little Misunderstood. So they're both like 2D children's book art walking simulators, with like fantastical elements, I guess. A Night in the Woods, is that what it's? I'm like 98% sure that's what it's called, A Night in the Woods.
I think it is A Night in the Woods.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's paced so much better. And like, it's like the movement is so crisp and it feels so good to like walk around the city. And like, even though it's very linear, it's still really, it means something more because it's interactive. And so a lot of the things that your character is anxious about, you kind of build an anxiety to relate with her as you're running around this town trying to figure out what's happening. So whereas Little Misunderstood, I felt like would have been almost as good as just like a short film or like an, you know, like an animated featurette. A Night in the Woods like really, really benefits from its interactivity. It's such a great game. The writing's fantastic. I love it. I love it. I love it. I cannot wait to finish it.
You've 100% sold me on it. I'm sorry, Nick. Go ahead.
No, you're good. It's sounding a lot like the Oxenfree games. Is it a lot like that? Just the walk in and like picking like what you're saying to the other person as you're walking, or is there dialogue choices?
Yeah. Yes. There is. I would say less dialogue choices in Oxenfree. And I think they impact less as well. But it's still really good.
That is so cool. It kind of, when you were first describing it, it sounded like Gone Home. Have you played that?
Yes, I have played Gone Home. I think I got frustrated and quit like 2/3 of the way through. I did not love Gone Home.
What'd you get frustrated about? It's a walking simulator.
There's
It's a lot of walking.
There's like a puzzle where you have to like figure out how to get into someone's room at some point.
Okay.
There's a key and like a keyhole, and I just didn't know where to put the key.
Whatever.
And I just couldn't figure out.
Real Gone Home fans will know what I'm talking about.
Or is it clockwise?
There's anyways. I think it's spooky. It's not horror though. I thought it would be horror. As honestly what I thought it would be, but it's so far just like spooky.
Do you think it could be horror if you suffered existential dread about whether your life was meaningless or not?
Yeah. Like eldritch horror, like in this like horror that's impossible to put into words.
I feel that.
Yeah.
Strong level. Okay.
Nick, what have you been playing?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I've got a short list here. So we recently over on Smashing Game Time interviewed a few of the developers with Little Gator Game. One of my one of my favorite titles from 2022.
Yeah.
And
damn.
That was a lot of fun. I hopped in and played a little bit of it to get ready for the interview. And I forgot how good it feels to move in that game. So for those who don't know, Little Gator Game is a 3D kind of exploration, very cozy game. It plays like Breath of the Wild. It looks like Wind Waker. You are a little gator on an island that is just trying to get enough people to play with you on the playground so that your big sister, who's busy with her college work, will put her laptop down and play with you. And that's it. And I bought this back in December. This is a game I 100%ed achievements and everything in like 4 hours. It is so much fun. As the developer said, I won't spoil too much of the interview, but I mean, it's about just like playing and having fun and mixing and matching. So like you get a power where you blow a bubble and you can float up to the top of the map, and then you can pop that bubble, and there's another function where you can just hit a button and you go completely ragdoll. And it's just all about playing with those things. I booted up the New Game Plus and was playing with all of those different abilities. And I went to the top of a mountain, ragdolled my way down into a story mission that I forgot was there. And I was like, oh man, I feel like a kid just like stumbling into these cool things. And all the kids are really well written. They sound like kids. They don't sound like adults writing kids. Fun game. I would recommend it to everybody. They actually just announced they're going to PlayStation and Xbox. So that's really cool.
Oh, wow. Where is it currently available?
It is a Switch game and it is on Steam.
And it runs great on Switch.
Sounds so cute.
It is such a cute, fun little game. I play games with my son right now, just little find and seek games, but that'll be like the first game when they're ready to play on their own that I'll like, all right, go play Little Gator Game. Go see what kind of trouble you can get into.
I have to tell my brother about that. I have a 5-year-old nephew who loves games, so that sounds like it would be right up his alley.
And the soundtrack is really good. The I have two other major ones. I'm playing Death Stranding, but I won't bore you guys with that. That is some long book club thing my brothers and I are doing, and I forgot that Kojima really, really likes to put long cutscenes in his game. So I won't bore you with that. I'm playing Ugly from Team Ugly. This is a 2D puzzler, side-scroller. Think the gameplay of Braid meets the art style of Cuphead. Very simple game. You're not attacking anything. You're not jumping on anything. You are an ugly little guy. You have a mirror ability that has two versions of you running around. And if you hit a button, you switch places with your other little guy. And it starts to get more complicated as you go. You get into areas where, oh, you can't go into an area with this little pink splotch on it. You can't switch spots. You have to find a way to get into this one clear spot in the room. Oh, you learn like this jumping ability where you're like switching with your guy, like making big jumps. And it's one of those games that's really cool where like when you go back to an old room with like a new ability that you learned, you're like, oh, I could have like just made this jump into that area and been completely done. I saw credits on it, but there's a part 2 after the credits roll, so I'm playing through that right now. I'll have more to say on it. It's doing some interesting things story-wise. It is a horror game. I want to say it's a horror game, so it plays into today's theme. But it does one of the most interesting things with its boss fights is that they're all related to the narrative. You know, a lot of games, like the bosses don't really play much into what's going on. It's just like, oh, we're in this police station and there are zombies everywhere. Oh, by the way, here's a big alligator. Fight this big alligator in the sewer or whatever. But no, each boss fight plays into the theme, and I thought that was really cool. Last game I'm playing, this will actually relate to you, Katie, because you're playing this guy's other game, I believe, is Papers, Please. I picked it up after hearing about the 10-year anniversary. And man, that game, so Papers, Please, you are at the border. You are letting people into your country. You have to review all their paperwork. And with each passing day, things get more complicated. It's a fictional country, but it's Russia. It's Russia. It's Russia. And so, like, you'll be working, and then, like, randomly you'll see one of the little guys that you let in go up to the gate and blow himself up by the security guards. And then so that it plays into the story the next day where, okay, well, hey, people coming in from this country need this additional paperwork. And it's basically just making you check everyone's stuff. And sometimes people will be like, hey, I have all my stuff. My wife's right behind me. She doesn't have the stuff. Could you let her in? And it really plays with you. It plays with your emotions. And it's like, okay, you're going to let this person in? Well, why that person, you dick? I just cursed on your podcast. I don't know if I can do that.
That's allowed.
That's allowed.
Well, we can always bleep it if we need to. No. But it's fascinating. There's an endless run version of it, which I haven't hopped into yet, but I'm like 20 days in, and there's a secret organization that you're working with that gives you these little codes to decipher with like, okay, we need you to let this person in on this day. And it's really fun. This is the same guy who did the Oberdin. And the exciting thing about this game came out in 2013. Oberdin came out in 2018. It would make me think, has he announced anything about a game coming up or?
I don't know. Have you heard anything, Dempsey?
I've played neither of these games. I'm not familiar. I'm sorry. I've heard of both of them.
Keeping up with news.
So Papers, Please. So that was in my library for a while. Oberdin is also in my library. So once I finish Papers, Please, I think I'll hop on over.
Papers, Please is in my library, and I just finished the Oberdin, so maybe that's my next.
Maybe we'll get a quasi book club going.
Ships passing in the night. Yes.
Ironic ships.
I think I have both of those games in my library as well.
It's a problem because I have Night in the Woods. I have Night in the Woods in my library, so we're all going to the beat of the same drum here.
All you need to do really to know if you're going to be friends with people is just like share your Steam libraries, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, you're good people. Okay.
200 games. He's only played 10 of them. All right.
I feel that. Yeah.
But
then I won't be judged.
That is all I've been playing. Katie, what have you been playing?
That's awesome. Yeah, I've been playing the Return of the Oberdin. I've tried to play this one a couple of times. So for people who don't know, it's a mystery game where you are an insurance investigator in like the late 1800s, I believe. mid 1800s. I don't know. The date shows you in the very beginning. I forget. But you're an insurance investigator who goes onto this ship, the Oberdin, and you are given a journal and a magic compass. I think it's a compass, basically where you can sort of psychically see people's last moments. And your job is to go through this ship and find out what happened to the 60 people aboard the ship. And the cool thing about it is that every time you find like a body, you get to go in to enter their last moment, but it's actually a still shot. And so you have this really interesting art style. It's all black and white kind of line drawings. And you go through and you have to really closely inspect every scene to try to figure out what's going on. It never tells you anything. It's sort of like if somebody made a mystery and was like, I just want to see if people can infer. And that's all it is. You spend your entire game inferring what happened. And at first, I bounced off about 3 times. I've tried to play this game. And it's like 100% my jam. So I didn't understand what the problem was. I was like, why am I not liking this? But really what it came down to was I didn't understand how interconnected all of the scenes are. I would go to somebody's death scene and think, okay, this has the clue. This is going to tell me what happened. But as I started to play more and more, I realized that honestly, it's the tiniest details in all of these different scenes that don't seem connected. And that's how you find out the most like obscure identities. And I just had like the most fun with it. It was the most like magical experience that I've had recently, honestly. Because once I started getting momentum, I was so hooked and I was like going and then it started to click how the game was meant to be played. And I started going back through. I had a notebook. I was taking notes. I was circling things, like highlighting, like the whole 9 yards. Like, yeah, so I would highly recommend that to both of you, since neither of you have played it. And it's kind of spooky because there's kind of, obviously there's 60 people that are dead. So there's plenty of gruesome sort of, it's not really gross, but there's some horror elements, which is quite interesting. The other game I've been playing is Soma, and I was playing that in preparation for talking about spooky games. And that game is a first person, I would call it like exploration sort of experience. You don't really, like, there's no combat as far as I can tell, but there is plenty of running and hiding, because you are aboard this underwater ship or base, where everything has gone to hell, and there is a terrifying technology-based monster that you run into. And at first I was like, this isn't scary at all. It's sort of a little atmospheric and it's a little creepy. And sometimes there's like, you can see things like are thunking or rattling, saying that there's something around the corner. But when you get there, there's nothing there. And then I got out of the prologue into the first proper act. And this thing is so fucking terrifying that I was streaming it because I can't play horror games by myself, and I was like, well, if I stream it I won't feel alone. And my husband was playing FIFA downstairs in the basement and he had my stream on so that I wouldn't be alone. He's my one watcher. And and I was saying in my mic, I was like, I'm fine. I'm not scared. I'm not scared of you. And he texted me and he's like, you sound scared. I was like, yeah, I am. But it's terrifying because if you look at it, it's like the Enderman in Minecraft. If you look at it, it brings it to you. And all of a sudden, like the fact that I couldn't look at the threat made it completely overwhelmingly terrifying. So it took me a really long time to get past that part. But it's super well written. The story is super interesting. I really enjoy stories that use like AI, that have AI characters. So I would really highly recommend that one if you can get past how scary it is. That's mostly what I've been playing this week.
This is another one that is collecting dust in my Steam library.
It's good. You shouldn't play it with your kids.
Noted. Oh, it's the same team that did the new Amnesia. Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right. I'm here for it.
Yeah. And also, I believe they did Penumbra as well.
Oh, yeah. These guys love scary stuff.
They do. And I thought I played a little Amnesia way back in the day, like in the early 2000s, and it was too scary for me. I couldn't play it at all, but Soma's not too scary. It's on the cusp for me. But that's a perfect segue. So this week we're talking about horror, and I thought to get started we could just talk about sort of our own histories with horror as a genre, whether it's with games or just media in general. So I can start us off if you want. My experience with horror is almost zilch. I have, for most of my life, avoided horror completely because I don't like to be grossed out and I don't like to be made uncomfortable. But I have a friend who loves horror. And she told me that horror is the genre that is used to explore societal fears. And when she explained it to me like that, I thought it was so fascinating. And it made me really curious about horror in a way that I hadn't been before. Not enough to like watch horror movies, but there's a podcast called Too Scary Didn't Watch, and and they like do breakdowns of horror movies, and that's my level. That's how I can interact with like horror movies. But with games, I've only really played horror games either watching somebody else play, or like taking turns, but I haven't really done that much until recently. I think BioShock is the scariest game I've ever finished by myself. So, how about you guys? What's your history with or relationship to horror so far? Dempsey or Nick?
Oh, okay. I have like, I'm trying to think of like, I do not enjoy being scared. And so a horror experience has to offer something else. Like, if it's just known for being very scary, that's not enough of a hook to draw me in. But if it's like, if there's some other elements that I find really interesting, I'm okay with being scared in order to tell another story. And I think I have an illogical bias against horror. I think I need to grow up, I need to open my mind, and I need to accept horror as like a legitimate art. Because, which is part of the reason I wanted to do this horror month, was to give us a chance to explore that, especially in video games. But like I normally do not like supernatural horror very much because it feels very arbitrary. Like it feels like the ghosts can do whatever they want to with no reason, and like the kind of like The Conjuring or like those style of movies do not scare me, and I also don't find them very compelling because I'm like, well, like it's a ghost that it seems like its main priority is to provide the aesthetics of a spooky house. Not like there's like a logic. Not like there's like a logic to its motivation or what it is wanting to accomplish. I think the first horror movie I've ever watched was 13 Ghosts with the guy who played Shaggy from Scooby-Doo.
Matthew Lillard. Yeah,
Matthew Lillard. The range on that guy. But
I'm woozy here.
Yeah. But I think like, yeah, I went back and I watched that last year, and I was like, oh, this is like a really mediocre experience. Cause like it's literally just a haunted house. Like it's a haunted house movie where like it's a haunted house and puzzle. Like it's a, I think a lot of haunted houses end up being puzzles because they need to give the character something to do. And so that is solve whatever puzzle is in the environment that's trying to kill them. And 13 Ghosts is just like a more explicit version of that, where like the house is this like contraption basically. And so like I didn't love it. I'm trying to think of like horror things that I really love. I think video games have the capacity for me to find more meaning in just being scared. So the first proper horror video game I ever played was Little Nightmares, which, are we considering that a horror game? Or is
I would.
Oh yeah.
No, I would. It's on my list.
Okay. So I think when you are controlling the character, that makes like like you feel the character's emotions so much more than watching a movie. And like it doesn't really matter that there's no motivation to the world, because like when I'm watching a movie I need to understand what's the motivation for the world acting on this character, or like what's happening, like. But like I don't know, I feel like I'm much more forgiving because like when I'm playing Little Nightmares, like I don't really care what the grotesque chef's motivation are. I just know that I am terrified and in order to get out of danger, I have to do something. And I have to, Little Nightmare does a really good job of like, the only way to escape danger is to go into further danger. And that is such a, I don't know, just like a really fantastic experience. And so I'm looking forward to exploring horror in video games more than I am film, or I don't think I've ever read a horror book in my life. But like, yeah. And then I played Resident Evil, trailer trash. Which one is that? That's not the most recent. That's 7, right?
Isn't it 7, 8?
That's 7.
8 is the big boobs. 7 is trailer trash. And 7 is terrifying. Like that was like the way the doors, like you can't go into it. You can never see what's in a room, before you go into a room. You have to like fully commit to going into a room before you can go into a room. And like, that's terrifying. And like at the beginning, when you first go into the, like this horribly decrepit house, and also it has like this abusive family vibe too, which is also just like very scary to have this like, he's not alcoholic, he's possessed, but he acts like an alcoholic, I guess. And so to have this like alcoholic dad yelling at you from the other room, it's also like a level of horror that's very scary. And so, yeah, I think I'm excited to explore horror in video games because I feel like it's just so much more like, it's just like that experience that I didn't ascribe to meaning when I was afraid watching scary movies develops so much meaning when I am the one having to push the story forward in a horror game. So yeah, I'm pumped for this month in our exploration of horror games. What about you, Nick?
So I think the first movie I ever saw was a horror movie. My grandpa, rest in peace, ate the movies up. I think I watched the first Halloween when I was 5 or 6, way too early. Like the image of that first guy getting stuck in the wall with the knife is something that'll live with me forever. I mean, it's an iconic scene, but and that was something our relationship was built on all the way up until he passed. The last conversation I had with him, I was recommending A Quiet Place to him. Because this guy, he would go and buy a new horror DVD like every I guess DVDs used to come out on Tuesdays, right? He would go and get these DVDs like every Tuesday and like, oh, got the new horror movies. And so that's another thing engraved in my memory. Game-wise, I want to say watching my mom play one of the Resident Evils was one of my earliest memory of playing or of watching someone play Resident Evils. I wasn't very brave myself. I'd say the first horror game I really participated in would probably be Silent Hill 3 when I was a teenager. Didn't have a copy of 2. Just was like, you know what? Let's go play 3. Let's just jump into it. I have no idea what's going on. These puzzles are really hard. I don't know anything about Shakespeare. But the thing I really like about horror is, especially in games, and I think this is more so for games than in movies, like you don't have to participate in all the subtext that's going on. You can just, oh, hey, I'm running around and this guy's chasing me. This is really scary. Or, hey, me and my 4 buddies are trying to avoid this killer. We got to fill this gas tank and get on out of here. But like, if you really dig deep, you get a lot more out of it. So like Resident Evil 2 with like the police station, like if you read the subtext, the game is telling you like, hey, these public servants that you think are here for you are actually here for these corporations and these billionaires over here. This was never meant for you. This is something meant for everybody else. Or like Signalis, which was like one of my favorite games that came out last year, was just very, very heavy on, the class politics. And there are better essayists out there than me. I'll let you guys go check those YouTube videos. But I do love that about horror games, that you can meet them at their level, or you can just be like, I'm gonna go save with this ink ribbon and then try to get around this zombie on this staircase. Yeah. Does everyone, I don't want to derail us, but does everyone in here have like a favorite scary movie or a scary game that really resonates with them?
I really love, so BioShock is not, I guess, really that scary to probably a lot of people, but to me, it was really scary, especially when it first came out. I think, what year did that come out? Like 20?
Was that part of the 2007 run?
I feel like it was. So I was in high school, and I remember trying to play it myself and being too scared to. So I had my brother played it, and I watched him play it. And I remember that the atmosphere was obviously incredible, and the storytelling and all of that, and the music and all the things. But I remember what really stuck with me with that was the way that the splicers had wanted so much to be more than what they were, that they lost themselves in this pursuit of some unattainable made-up goal that they thought was going to make them happy. And I remember that really resonating with me at that age, thinking like, and it's funny because like I wasn't like analyzing the game when I played it, but I just remember thinking about it like these people completely wrecked themselves trying to achieve this societal goal that they had decided was important to them. And I remember that just really sticking with me ever since I played it.
You're making me want to go back and play it.
How about you, Dempsey?
I'm trying to think of like a horror movie or a horror game that I like really, really love. I do not think The Last of Us is a horror game. I think that's like an action adventure game. But
it's a horror action adventure.
Yeah, I really love The Last of Us for the same reason everyone loves The Last of Us. I've only played 2 Resident Evil games. I played 4. 4 also felt like I played a remaster, not the remake. So like I played it like 3 years ago or whatever. I want to play the remake, but I felt like Resident Evil 4 is a lot more like action and like fun and adventure-y. But Resident Evil 7, it looked at poverty in a way that was like actually like really good. Like it looked at like poverty and family dysfunction. Like, and I don't know, like, so I grew up in a very poor, very rural town. And Resident Evil 7 is more southern than I am. So I grew up in the Midwest, whereas Resident Evil, I think it's meant to be more like Appalachia. But I grew up in a town like 500. And so like they got, for being a Japanese studio, they got a lot like of what it means to be desperately poor in the middle of nowhere with like no social safety nets and like no social, and like what it looks like, what's the worst version of not like being a dysfunctional family when you're that isolated as well. Like there's so many specific things that Resident Evil 7 did that spoke to like the worst parts of rural, like what I experienced growing up in rural America. And so I think like for something that really impacted me and stayed with me, I think Resident Evil 7 will be that. I don't know if that's a good answer, but it's my answer. It's good.
I think that's a good answer.
It's a beautiful answer.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on the movie side. So a piece of media that's really stuck with me, and it's newer. I say that, but it's almost 10 years old now, is It Follows. And,
oh, I've seen that. Mm-hmm.
And it's just it's this fun movie. Like you don't know when it takes place. I think it was shot in Detroit. Any movie shot in Detroit at this point, I'm in love with because they cover the urban decay. So like Barbarian was I loved Barbarian. I love the hell out of Barbarian. But I think those 2 movies, along with the original Halloween, are in a conversation with each other about like the decay of the suburbs And, looking back at Halloween, I remember people always saying like, this used to be a nice part of town. You could lock your door. And I look back at that, the people saying that now, and I'm like, are you for real with all those serial killers running around? You guys had your doors unlocked back then? Like, so just seeing all these films like set in the suburbs and seeing these people who aren't used to the terrors of like, just everyday life, like having terror come their way. And It Follows is just a really good metaphor for death. It follows teenagers that just experience sex, which is like when you're a teenager, that's the thing you're really chasing. You're really chasing it. And then once you get past that point in life, you're like, the next big thing is like, oh shit, I'm going to die.
Is that the haunted STD movie?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And that was people compared it like, oh, it's a metaphor for STDs. But I think it goes a little deeper, and it's like,
I haven't seen
like
it.
You like are so, when you're at that age, you only think about that one thing. And once you've had that one thing, you become obsessed with that other thing, which ends up being death. And I just think it's a beautiful, it's very beautiful the way that they did it. I think it has a beautiful ending. It has one of the more like bleak endings, but it still feels hopeful in the end. I would recommend for anyone to watch it. Barbarian also, and Halloween. Just watch them all.
That reminds me of actually one that I did watch, Bird Box with Sandra Bullock. I think that's based off of a book, actually. And that's one where you can't look outside or you'll go insane and kill yourself. And so she has these two little children and they have to like blindfold themselves. I think in the book they actually get blinded. I'm not sure. But in the movie they wear blindfolds and they have to like try to navigate the world blind. Because if they look out at the world, it's gonna make them go insane. And I'm not sure why It Follows and Bird Box both feel like the same vibe of just like, I think it's just the inexorable terror, like knowing that something is coming for you. If you stop and look, you'll see it.
When you don't know the form, like I think the biggest thing in horror across all media is not knowing what the thing is that's chasing you. And like it's much like your imagination running wild is much scarier than anything they can throw on the screen, CGI or a guy in a costume, whatever it is.
Absolutely. Like that's what makes Soma so terrifying, because once I realized that when you look at it, it draws the monster towards you. Because I was like, at one stage I stopped and I looked at it and I was like, I just want to see what happens if I just stare at this thing, and what happens is you die. And it's really scary. But so then I was like, okay, so how do I navigate through this like underwater dilapidated like base? And you have to like look down, like you can't even have it in your camera. So you literally at one point I was like staring down at where the floor and the wall meet, trying to find my turn, because I could feel that the monster was right next to me. It was like making my screen shake and stuff. And not being able to look at the threat was probably the scariest moment I've ever had in gaming in my life, because I knew it was right there and I thought, oh my God, if I turn around, it is going to be right there. Like that anticipation was terrifying. But I think that is kind of something that's really neat about horror, and maybe why people like it so much, that it allows us to kind of indulge in and explore a level of fear that we normally can't experience without being in actual danger, Mm-hmm. It's something, it's a safe way to explore that area.
So I think what excites, okay, so I have something that a friend told me that I'm going to connect to what you're talking about. I am very susceptible to marketing. And in the past, I think like maybe like 5 or so years, there's been this like discourse on the internet about filmmakers like Jordan Peele and Ari Aster making quote unquote elevated horror. And so that's like, have you guys heard the term elevated horror? Mm-hmm. And
is that like Midsommar or something?
So, okay. So yes, it would be like Midsommar and Heredity and like A24 horror, and then Jordan Peele making these masterpiece films as well. And I was talking to one of my friends who really likes horror, and I used the phrase elevated horror, and he went on like this 20-minute rant about how that's not a good term. And this idea that like horror has always had something good to say. It just happened to have really good marketing for the past 5 years. And he really challenged me to like to see kind of past my own preconceived notions of horror. And so one of the things that like excites me about playing a video game, and like you were talking about, like you get to feel that fear, for me is like detaching from like the need for a logical narrative and only having an emotional experience. And I think if that's what people get from like horror movies, it makes me like understand that media like a lot, like that medium a lot more, like horror, because like it's like it's like when I'm going to use Resident Evil 7, I guess, like when you hear like the dad using this like very angry voice yelling at you from another room, like obviously the context is like cartoony. It's like, you know, he's, you know, possessed by this ghost bacteria thing. I don't know. And but like the broader context didn't matter when I was experiencing being yelled at by him and knowing that he was coming for me. Like at that moment, it was like, I don't like almost like animalistic, or like my body was experiencing something. Like it was almost like kind of like exercise. Like my body is experiencing something. My mind does not have to analyze it right now. If that makes any sense. And so like you were saying, experiencing that fear is something that I'm really trying to open myself up to.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense, actually, because I think for one thing, I think what you're talking about is like that suspension of disbelief where you can let yourself be more immersed, even if it doesn't necessarily make as much logical sense.
Because I think horror, like I've never been more immersed than when I am playing a horror game. Like I have played extremely beautiful dramatic games and like extremely beautiful, like, and like really like cognitively demanding like CRPGs and real-time strategy games and things like that. But like the level of immersion in a horror game is like profound. like I don't know. I just think it's like on another like emotional level in my opinion.
I think it's because it kicks in our fight or flight response, and our brain can't tell the difference between a real lion in the living room and a fake zombie on our TV, you know? So I think that's like a very basic and primitive survival thing where once those hormones kick in, man, you are along for the ride until you get through it.
Right. And I have, when it comes to, you know, removing myself from a character, I have a hard time doing that. Like, yes, these are just pixels in front of me. This isn't an actual ghost. But when I'm playing Phasmophobia with my brothers and someone tells me to go into a room by myself where we know the ghost is, I'm like, no. You come with me. And that's how I would react anywhere. If I'm watching a scary movie, I'm not going to be in this room by myself watching this. If I'm going to one of those haunted hay rides or haunted walkthrough things, like I know that's a theater kid in a mask, but I'm not doing it. I need someone by me because I don't want to experience. And it's the same way. I think that's why when you look at people who got big on Twitch and in the streaming realms, like that's why scary games are one of the most popular areas outside of gambling. It's because people don't want to get scared alone. Getting scared is a community aspect, and I think that's why comedy and horror go so hand in hand, because you know you have that community aspect behind both of those.
100. I completely agree. Like watching a comedy with friends is so much better, and watching a horror movie with friends is so much better. I could watch like a drama by myself and it be like, you know, a fantastic experience. that's not the same with horror and comedy. And I think it's because you have that like nervous system level experiences with people.
One of the best movie experiences I ever had, speaking of Jordan Peele, was Us. I went and saw Us in theaters when it came out. And the football and basketball teams that I was working with at the college I was working at, they all showed up, and everyone, like, we were all hooting and hollering the whole movie. It was so much fun. It was so stupid to get scared. And yeah, that was one of the best movie experiences I ever had because of the community around me.
Absolutely. I wonder what it is about comedy and horror that are so like intertwined, because I feel like they're, like you're saying, there's like a basic, I don't know, human experience about sharing laughter. And it's interesting because my favorite horror movie of all time is oh gosh, now I won't remember it. Something in Tucker Saved the World, and they
It's like Dale.
Evil.
Dale and Tucker.
Yeah, Dale and Tucker Against Evil or something like that. Yeah, This is my favorite movie, and I don't know what it's called, but my favorite horror. But that movie like so expertly intertwines comedy and fear, and I think it's because all of the times where it's supposed to be like it's supposed to be scary, they're actually the good guys, and so it's that like juxtaposition. It's almost like a relief, like when you're getting ready to be really scared, and then it turns out to be funny, and you're just like, whew, okay.
Yeah, that movie almost has like comfort movie vibes a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%.
It does. Yeah,
I think the two intertwine so well because we all meet them at different levels. So like Resident Evil 7, for example, like I keep wanting to call him Troy Baker. I know it's not Troy Baker. The dad character that's always yelling. Like someone may be afraid of that character, just like may have had someone yelling at them in the past. And they're like, oh, that really reminds me of that person. Whereas another person may have had that person in their life yelling who was a scary person as well. But like, you made yourself laugh at that person. So like the same with comedy, like you feel a comfort in laughing or a discomfort in laughing because there's truth in the things that are being shared across both genres.
I think that's it. Yeah, I think fear and laughter or like humor are such genuine emotions that when you really are sharing them with people, I think it's really impactful. Yeah, that's exactly it. You nailed it, Nick.
Yeah, so if I'm laughing at that RE7 character, you guys may be looking at me like, what the fuck is wrong with you? That guy's terrible. Why are you laughing at this? And I think that's just the beauty in horror and comedy, that we are all coming at it from the different areas of life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are there any games that are really, really scary to you, Nick? You seem like the most experienced horror person here.
Well, you know, I brought up Ugly, and it's like, I don't want to introduce any recency bias, but that game does a lot of its storytelling through chalk drawings that you find. You have to like line up your two characters, and then it'll show you like something from your past. And there's this trend in media, and you guys might edit this out because I think this might be too dark, but there's a trend in media with like infanticide, with the death of children, the death of babies. Saw it in The Witcher. You see it in, I think did the new Resident Evil have it? It's all over the place though. And as a new father,
What Remains of Edith Finch.
Yeah, that's my favorite example. You get to drown a baby.
Well, so in Ugly, you find out that this character who is, I imagine your stepfather. I don't know the whole picture, but he hates you because you're an ugly child. And he's getting all these women pregnant, trying to, like, I guess, have a true heir or have a child that he adores. And they all come out ugly. So there's a scene where he's throwing them all into a furnace. And it was one of those things where I had to stop for a minute. I was like, this is a bit much. This is a bit much. And I don't know why that's the new thing. The new Halloween that came out in 2018 kind of dabbled in this. They had Michael Myers in a long shot walking through the neighborhood. He went into a house, killed a woman, and then you see him, like the scene keeps going, and you see him walk up to a crib. And thankfully they show him walking away, but it felt like this moment where that if that had gone another way, that kind of would have set some people off. That would have set a lot of people off. And so I think Ugly really, from that standpoint, stuck with me. I'll see if they end up sticking the landing. Otherwise, I'm just revisiting a lot of Resident Evil in my head. recently and like replaying some of the older games, and just those first 3 games and how they comment on community. That first game's very fascinating. Again, like you can choose to go like take in the subtext and see what the game has to say about the stuff that it's saying, or you can just run around a mansion and like explore all these puzzles. But one of the most fascinating things about that first Resident Evil is the mansion. And I think the star of Resident Evil, you can like stars, you can like Nemesis, you can like Wesker, but I think the stars of those games are their settings. And because, I mean, first thing, you bring up Resident Evil 2, people bring up the police department. You bring up 1, people talk about the mansion. You bring 3 kind of the outlier there. But, excuse me. I'm really fascinated with the setting and the mansion. The architect for that mansion is in that whole first game, and that's just stuff that you find in notes. His daughter's actually kidnapped and experimented on in that game, so it's a really interesting commentary on having endless supplies to pursue your dream from that character's standpoint, and it ends up costing him everything. Yeah, so I think Resident Evil, I'm really coming around to it right now. Sorry to give you the long answer on that.
No, that's okay.
I think I stood up a little bit there too. All the baby stuff.
Oh no. Do you feel like being scared and being disturbed entwined, or do you feel like you can have those things separately?
I think it's just the context of the moment. Like if I wasn't a dad right now, the scene in Ugly, I would have been like, oh, that's messed up, and then moved on with my life. Like, yeah, that's really messed up that they did that thing. But I can separate it. It's just, it was one of those things where it was really tougher. Another example, and it's not a horror story, it's not a horror game or movie, but The Witcher, I didn't watch season 3, but season 2 had a scene where I think it was a witch character burned a baby in the bed. And I was just like, you didn't have to do that. You're just trying to like, I think it's more so what the developer or the filmmaker is trying to establish with that scene. And I think when you're killing a baby in anything, it's just to establish, oh, this character is irredeemable. This character doesn't care about this or that. And so when you're saying something that you can say 100 other ways, my mind's just like, you didn't have to do that.
Does that mean Mike Myers is redeemable? Is that what that? Because he doesn't kill the baby?
I think they were trying to say that, but then they did the whole evil dies tonight side shtick. Went off the rails. No, he's not.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
But at least he never went to space.
Sure.
True.
So, I think I do not like the majority of the time when I feel horror, it doesn't feel like something is that I am personally afraid of is being represented. It's like you were talking about, like how because you were a parent, that makes like infanticide in like a horror context a lot more disturbing than if you like. I do not think I am not a parent, and I do not think I would be as disturbed as someone with children. So Katie, like, do you have like, I guess games that like really reflect things that you are afraid of?
I'm trying to think. I was thinking about that earlier. I think so. I haven't played this game, but I watched a video essay about it, and it was super interesting. And it was Silent Hill 3.
That's basically playing a game.
Yeah, Silent Hill 3, and in that game, a young woman, she's like 17, basically like finds out that she's been impregnated with God, and she goes through this crazy journey.
I wish Seth was here. Seth is our Christian.
Seth is our resident Christian. This is true. We need to bring his mom on. She's a pastor. She's
a theologian.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so she finds herself pregnant and going through this, trying like this terrifying, I don't know exactly what's going on, but she's basically in this like other world, and she goes through this journey to regain basically like her autonomy and her body and her identity. And when I was watching the essay on that, it really stuck with me because I think that's one of the areas that I feel a lot of anxiety or fears about, like bodily autonomy and just being like safe in my own body. Sorry, this is really serious, but that's something that when I was watching that, it really stuck with me. And I actually recently watched a movie called The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, and it's from like the early 90s. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but basically what it's about is a woman, two women are pregnant, and the one lady is married to a doctor, and the doctor like is like medically malpractices with the other woman when she's pregnant. And so he ends up like killing himself or whatever. And the woman, the wife, ends up having this horrible miscarriage and like has to have this hysterectomy and all of these things. And I watched that, and I had seen it as a child and didn't really understand what was going on. And I watched it just a couple weeks ago. And I remember being so horrified for the woman who lost her child, even though she turns out to be like the villain, in a way that I wasn't when I was younger, because I could understand more really how horrible that would be. And so I watched that movie, and then I watched the Silent Hill 3, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is a deep-seated fear of mine. Now I know. Like, I feel this very strongly. So it's interesting how like different life stages you start to bring out different sorts of terror.
Having a plot revolving around like a Virgin Mary parallel with a game that deals with, that's crazy. That's that's
it
wild.
Sounds wild.
That's some like heavy commentary stuff. That's so many layers to that. Oh my goodness.
I know. Nick, when you said you played that when you were younger, I was like, I wonder what that was like.
Honestly, it's a game that like I just remember that like just being very eerie, but story-wise, I didn't remember. I just remember there was a carnival, and it was like my first foray into like body horror in a game. And I think I think Silent Hill 3 is probably aged pretty well compared to the rest of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that a Japanese game?
It's from Konami, so is that Korean?
Oh.
I don't know.
I always blank. I always blank on where Konami's at.
Okay, that feels like some Japanese I want to kill God stuff.
Yeah, super. Really, I was like, God, I kind of want to play this, but I think it's going to make me feel terrible, so I won't. But
I know that Konami does the pachinko machines, and I think that's Korean. So,
gotcha. I don't know that one either.
That's all they do now.
Have you guys ever played Danganronpa?
Danganronpa.
Yeah, I think Dempsey, I think it's a horror game that you would enjoy. So it is, it's sort of a visual novel. It's a little bit Persona 5-y, like that you have like social time that you can spend to level up different relationships. And then like, if you level up certain relationships, you get certain like RPG bonuses. But you wake up and you're trapped in this school, and it's a school for people who are the best at whatever they're the best at. So there's like the ultimate detective and the ultimate guitarist and the ultimate street fighter and the ultimate book nerd. You don't know, you wake up and you don't know what you're the best of. And you're like, what the hell am I the best at? I don't even know. And you go through, and all of a sudden you're trying to get out of the school, and then somebody gets murdered. And so then the game becomes like a murder mystery where you have to find out who the killer is. And it's just super fun and also super creepy and weird. And there's like a killer teddy bear. And I think it's right up your alley, Dempsey. I think you'd like it a lot. It's weird though.
You've talked about Danganronpa before. No, I think it sounds like something I would enjoy.
Do we have any closing thoughts on horror?
I think I've been the most scared of stuff when it's subverted my expectations. So I think the most like in my head I've ever been about a piece of media. I watched. I don't know if you guys have seen Annihilation, but after watching
yes.
that, I went and read the book. And if for those who don't know the plot of Annihilation, a weird little blip appears down in the Everglades. They send the government sends a bunch of scientists to go like explore, and like all these expeditions disappear. The book and the movie say a lot of different things, but the fascinating thing about the book is they both look at like invasion, and you think going into like, oh, aliens, we're being invaded by aliens. But the fascinating thing the book does is that you're reading journal entries from the last expedition, and the wife character in the book is still very concerned about her husband who was on an earlier expedition, and she finds his journals and is reading about his life. And the whole time in her journal, she's lamenting about like how he invaded her life, took over parts of her life that she didn't want him to take over. And so it looks at invasion, but when you go in thinking about aliens and you realize, oh, I'm reading this person's personal journal entries and I'm invading that aspect of their life, while she's also lamenting that her husband invaded her life, and now she's reading his journal entries. And it was just like one of my biggest like, whoa, oh my God. We're all so caught up in like being invaded by aliens, especially with all the UFO stuff going on now, that we don't think about like the aspects of each other's lives that we're already invading. And it just, oh my God, like I had to stop reading it for a week after that realization. all that to say, whenever my expectations have been subverted, have been like my best experience with horror.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow, that sounds really good. I'll have to check that out.
It's very short, like 150 pages, and you're out.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I'll have to check that out. I love short fiction. That's great.
Yeah, that could be one of your book talk recommendations.
Oh yeah, could. That would be great. Oh my gosh, I'm getting more material all the time. Perfect. Awesome. All right. Well, I think, did we do it?
Yeah, we did. We made a podcast. Look at us.
I think we made a podcast. Awesome.
We casted the pod. We did it.
We casted the pod. Thank you so much for being on the show, Nick. We really appreciate you. Do you want to plug your show and what you've been doing and where we can find you?
Yeah, so we are Smashing Game Time. We come out every Monday in the morning whenever my producer puts it up. We're also on YouTube. You can find our recorded episodes there. We're looking to get more into like actual gameplay and doing all that stuff together. I'm working on building a website. I forgot how painful that is. Or wherever you get your social media. And I also do reviews on Game Chronicles, not Video Game Chronicles, Game Chronicles. And that's where you can find me. Guys, thank you so much for having me on. This has been a lot of fun, and this is a very fun topic.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Right. So thanks for listening to Overthinking Games. You can send us an email at overthinkinggamespodcast@gmail.com. If you have any comments or suggestions or thoughts about whatever, we'd love to hear from you. You can find us on TikTok, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can join us next week for another episode. Bye.
Bye. Seth has an ending bit that he always does, but
don't forget to drink
here.
your Ovaltine.
There we go. That's it.